I wasn't snooping. I was grabbing a hoodie from the laundry pile. That's it. Her phone was sitting right there on top of my folded shirt. Screen lit, buzzing nonstop, like it couldn't wait for her to come back. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. The preview read, "Same time tonight? Missed that mouth already face-blowing a kiss." No name, just a number, and a photo, one she had sent. It wasn't explicit, but it was her, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. She walked in a second later, holding a mug like nothing in the world had changed. And maybe for her, it hadn't. For me, it was the exact moment everything cracked. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the phone. I just said, "Hey, you got a message." She glanced at the screen and froze. Then came the line, the one I'll never forget. Not even when I'm old and half sane and trying to forget this whole damn chapter of my life. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Don't touch me. Find fun somewhere else." Like I was the problem. Like I had committed some crime by seeing the message that wasn't meant for me. I stood there, hoodie still half in my hands, heart sinking but face calm, and all I could think was, guess who'll be furious when I do exactly that? And trust me, she was, but not for the reasons you'd expect. Dinner that night was quiet. Not the comfortable silence kind, but the type where even the forks sound accusatory when they scrape the plate. She sat across from me, scrolling, chewing, not once making eye contact. I wanted to say something, anything, but how do you bring up "miss that mouth already" without sounding like a man unraveling? So I played dumb. I asked how her day went. She blinked twice like I'd asked her to solve a math problem in her head. Then she said, flatly, "Busy." I nodded. "Anything fun coming up this week?" She rolled her eyes, still looking at her phone. "You always ask that. It's weird." Weird. That word hit me harder than the message earlier. It's weird to ask your wife about her life now? It's weird to pretend you care? I pushed my plate away. I wasn't hungry anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was shrinking. That's the only way I can describe it. Like every attempt to stay connected made me a little smaller. A little more pathetic in her eyes. That night I couldn't sleep. She fell asleep easily, like she always did. One leg out of the blanket. One hand curled under her cheek. Peaceful. Detached. Not a trace of guilt anywhere on her face. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every odd moment I'd brushed off before. The gym memberships she never used. The late-night group projects with coworkers I've never met. The way she used to text me goodnight, even when we were in the same house, but lately didn't bother at all. And the sex? Gone. Not even a whisper of it. Just avoidance, sarcasm, or outright rejection. And yet, somehow, I still didn't want to accuse her. I wanted her to admit it. I wanted her to feel something. So the next morning, I tried one last time. I made her coffee the way she likes it. Oat milk. 1 cinnamon stick. Glass mug. I even put it on the windowsill so it caught the morning light the way she used to say made it look cafe fancy. She walked past it without stopping. Looked down once, then said, "We're out of vanilla drops," and kept walking. I stared at that untouched cup for 15 minutes. And that was it. I knew I had to pull away, but I didn't know how. So I did the one thing I hadn't done in months. I logged out of our shared calendar. That may sound small, but it was the start. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. But it felt like a tiny rebellion. A whisper of independence. That same night, I got a message from an old college friend, Lena. We hadn't talked in years. She was in town for a weekend and wondered if I wanted to grab coffee. I hesitated. Not because I felt guilty, but because I realized I didn't remember how to be someone worth meeting for coffee anymore. I had spent so long trying to be enough for someone who already checked out. I didn't know what was left of me beneath the trying. But I said yes. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted to feel human again. And that was my first real mistake. Because nothing in my life prepared me for what happened next. I told myself it was just coffee. Just two people with shared history catching up. Nothing more. Lena picked a place across town. The kind with plants on the ceiling and overpriced toast. where the cups are too small but the smiles are free. She hadn't changed much. Same dry wit. Same way of leaning in like she actually cared about the answer, not just waiting for her turn to talk. I'd forgotten what that felt like, to be listened to. For the first 15 minutes, we talked about everything but my marriage. Then she tilted her head and said, "So, are you okay?" That's when it hit me. No one had asked me that in over a year. Not even as a joke. Could have lied. Said I was great. Said work was busy. But the lie got stuck in my throat. So I just said, "No. I think she's seeing someone." Lena didn't gasp. Didn't even blink. Just nodded like she'd already suspected it. Then she said something that lodged itself into my bones. "And if she is, do you think she's done hurting you yet?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. By the time I got home, the apartment felt different. Not physically. The lights were off. The air smelled faintly like her perfume. But something in the energy had shifted. Like she could sense I'd talked to someone who remembered what I used to be. Like she could smell the threat of me remembering who I was before I became a ghost with a ring on. She was in the kitchen on the phone. I walked past her, expecting the usual brush off. But instead, she hung up. "You were gone long," she said. "No, hey. No, how was it?" Just a quiet accusation dressed in casual words. I looked at her. For the first time, I really looked at her. And for a flicker of a second, I saw something behind her eyes. Not guilt. Not love. Control. Like she had been holding the strings so long she forgot I might one day stop dancing. "Yeah," I said. "I got coffee with someone who actually talks to me." That shook her. Barely. But it did. "You're being dramatic," she muttered. But her voice was tight. Her shoulders stiff. She wouldn't look me in the eye. I stepped closer. I saw the messages. I didn't read them. I didn't have to. "I just want to know one thing. When did I stop being enough for you?" She paused. That should have been the moment for tears. For a breakdown. For something. But all she did was shrug. "You just got boring," she said. "Safe. Predictable. You stopped trying." And right there, something in me snapped. Not in rage, but in clarity. I'd been begging a storm to stop raining. And suddenly I understood. The storm doesn't care if you drown. I walked away. Not out of the apartment. Just into the other room. She didn't follow. For the first time in a year, I slept through the night. Not peacefully, but without flinching. And in the morning I started packing. Not because I was ready to leave, but because I wanted her to see what it looks like when someone actually does. She didn't react the way I expected when she saw the suitcase. No panic. No outburst. Just one long stare from the doorway as I folded my shirts into neat little stacks like I was going on a trip, not ending a marriage. She stood there with a coffee mug in her hand, her favorite one, the one I bought her 2 birthdays ago that said, "Empires don't apologize." The irony was disgusting. "Where are you going?" she asked finally, like it was a logistics issue and not a red flag flapping right in her face. I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to feel it, the weight of that question. The fact that I had to ask myself the same thing for months but in reverse. Where is she going? Who is she seeing? When is she coming home? Now it was her turn to not know. "Just out," I said. "Long enough to remember what breathing feels like." She smirked. Not because it was funny, but because I think the idea of me growing a backbone was genuinely amusing to her. "You're being dramatic again," she said. That word, dramatic, the one she used every time I voiced pain, every time I asked for connection, every time I begged her to just talk to me like a human being. She wielded it like a fire extinguisher. Cold, mechanical, designed to kill sparks. But there were no sparks left to kill. When I zipped the suitcase and stood up, she didn't stop me. But she did say one thing as I walked past her. "You'll be back. You always come back." I didn't even look at her when I answered. "Not this time." I stayed at a cheap hotel that first night. The kind with paper-thin walls and vending machines that steal your change. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, listening to muffled TV from the room next door and trying to piece together how the hell we got here. And somewhere between midnight and 3 a.m., her text started rolling in. First it was, "Are you seriously doing this?" Then, "You're being immature." Then, "Come home. We need to talk." By 4 a.m., it turned into "please." But it was too late for please. Please was a word you use before you crush someone, not after. The next morning, I checked out and didn't go home. I went to Lena's cafe instead, not to meet her, but just to sit. To exist in a space that didn't smell like betrayal. I sat there for 2 hours nursing 1 cup of black coffee until my phone rang again. It was her. I didn't pick up. A minute later, she sent a voicemail. And what she said on that recording shifted everything. Because suddenly it wasn't just about me. Or her. Or Evan. It was about something I didn't see coming. Something she had been hiding behind all the cold looks and late nights and passive-aggressive shrugs. And in that moment, I realized I didn't know the woman I had married at all. I didn't want to hear it. I hovered over the play button like it might bite. My thumb was literally trembling. But curiosity is a cruel thing. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It just drags you forward. So I hit play. First, there was silence. Then a breath. Then her voice. Softer than I'd heard it in months. It wasn't the voice of the woman who told me to go find fun somewhere else. It was shakier. Like she was either crying or trying not to. "Nolan, I don't know if you'll even listen to this. I probably shouldn't say anything, but..." There was a pause. A long one. I thought she might have hung up. Then she whispered, "It wasn't supposed to get this far." I froze. Evan was just attention. It was never serious. I didn't even like him that much. He noticed me. And I was so angry at you for disappearing emotionally. I let it happen." She sighed hard. It sounded like shame, but I wasn't sure anymore what her guilt looked like. "I kept waiting for you to fight for me," she said. "But you just kept folding. And then one day I realized I didn't respect you anymore. And that scared the hell out of me." That sentence hit like a brick to the chest. Not because it wasn't true, but because I knew it and I still stayed. I let her lose respect for me while I was begging her for scraps of affection. I mistook my own silence for strength. I thought endurance was love. I thought not walking away made me the good guy. But to her, it made me invisible. She kept talking. "I didn't expect you to actually leave. I wanted you to wake up. But now I don't know who I've turned into." The message ended there. No apology. No plea. Just that final sentence, floating in my ears like smoke in a locked room. I sat in that cafe for another hour, letting it burn through me. She admitted to cheating, but not out of passion. Out of spite. Out of boredom. Out of the ugly parts people don't post on social media. But more than that, she admitted she wanted me to fight for her, while actively destroying me. That wasn't love. That was a game. And I had been losing for a year straight without realizing I was even playing. By the time I stood up, I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't even angry. I was clear. She had tested me. Again and again. Pushed me to my edge just to see if I'd fall off or crawl back. And now that I was finally standing, she was scared. But she hadn't seen scared yet. Because I was just getting started. I didn't text her back. I didn't call. I didn't even reply to the voicemail. I just let the silence sit. Heavy, deliberate, unavoidable. And that silence did something she wasn't prepared for. It flipped the roles. By the next morning, I had 12 unread messages. Not emotional ones, strategic ones. The kind she used to send when she was getting ready to twist the knife with a smile. "I made breakfast if you want to talk. I found your charger. I'll leave it out. You left your gym shoes. Do you want me to drop them off?" It was almost funny. She didn't ask me to come home. She dangled normalcy like bait, hoping I'd bite. But I didn't want breakfast. I wanted answers. So I decided to give her what she'd given me for months. Confusion, coldness, and just enough attention to keep her wondering. I started responding to every third message, short, vague replies. "Thanks. I'll get them later. Not now." Every word felt like revenge without saying anything cruel. I wasn't being petty. I was finally letting her live inside the uncertainty she'd built for me. And it worked. By the end of the day, her tone shifted. The confidence cracked. I got a message at 10:42 p.m. Are you with someone? That was the first moment I smiled in weeks. She didn't care when I was in pain. She only cared now that I was unpredictable. That night, I stayed with an old friend from work, Noah. He had no idea what was going on until I finally opened up over whiskey and stale pizza. I told him everything, and he said something I couldn't stop thinking about. She kept you guessing until you forgot what certainty feels like. That was exactly it. I had been so deep in emotional limbo that I forgot what real stability looked like. Not just in love, but in myself. The next day, I went back to the apartment. Not to return. Just to collect the rest of my things and say whatever final words needed saying. I wasn't afraid of her anymore, and I think that terrified her more than any threat I could have made. When I walked in, she was already sitting on the couch. Hair done, makeup light, dressed like she hadn't been crying. But her eyes gave her away. She didn't stand up. Just looked at me with that forced casualness I used to mistake for strength. I didn't think you'd actually stay gone, she said quietly. I didn't think you'd make it so easy, I answered. She flinched. Not visibly. Just the slightest break in her posture. She tried to play it off with a laugh, but even her voice cracked. So that's it? You just vanish? No, I said. You vanished. I just finally stopped pretending you were still here. She asked if I wanted to talk. Said she was willing to be honest now. But I didn't want honesty out of desperation. I wanted it back when I was giving her everything I had. So I gave her one final truth instead. You broke something you thought you owned, and now you're angry you can't fix it. I walked out before she could respond. And for the first time in forever, I felt clean. 2 days after I walked out, she sent me a text. There's a letter for you. Found it while cleaning. Not from me. I wasn't planning to go back. But something about that message, the strange vagueness, the fact that she emphasized it wasn't from her, pulled me in. I told myself I'd be in and out in 5 minutes. No conversation. Just grab the envelope and leave. She left it on the entry table, sealed in a blank white envelope. No name, no return address. I opened it in my car, half expecting it to be some passive-aggressive goodbye note. But it wasn't. It was from her mother, dated 4 months ago. Apparently, she had written to both of us, but only one letter made it into the mail. Hers, not mine. The letter was short, but brutal in its honesty. Her mom said she was worried about Alara, that she saw coldness growing in her daughter, and that she feared the marriage was turning into a mirror of her own. Loveless, performative, slowly collapsing under ego and resentment. She begged us to go to counseling. Said, if you don't talk now, you'll bury yourselves in silence. And she had never shown me that. I sat in the car, hands shaking, staring at her neat cursive script, realizing that Alara hadn't just lied to me. She'd protected a version of herself that couldn't survive real confrontation. She knew her mother saw the cracks. She just didn't want me to. It wasn't just betrayal. It was control, even with her own family. And somehow that hurt more than the cheating, because it meant this wasn't about passion or confusion. This was about ownership. She didn't just want freedom. She wanted me quiet while she took it, and I'd given her that. Until now. I never told her I read the letter. I didn't need to. Some truths don't require confrontation, just closure. After that day, we went fully silent. No texts, no apologies, no attempts to rewrite the story. It just dissolved. And as painful as that sounds, it was the first time I felt in control of my life again. I stopped pacing through what-ifs and started walking forward. Not fast, not fearlessly, but forward. I moved out permanently, got a new place, small, quiet, mine. I hung art on the walls that didn't need to be approved. Bought groceries I actually liked. Relearned how to sleep without flinching at the sound of a phone buzz. Lena and I, we stayed friends. Nothing romantic. Just two people who remembered each other at a time when it mattered. And sometimes that's enough. I've started journaling again. I take walks without needing a destination. I even joined a local boxing gym. Turns out, There's something weirdly therapeutic about punching out everything you were too polite to say. And the truth? I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful. Grateful that it ended before I lost the last pieces of myself trying to fix something that was never broken. Just abandoned. We don't always get the closure we want. But sometimes we get the freedom we need. And that's the story. If you've ever had a moment where you realize someone wasn't fighting for you the way you fought for them, I want to hear it. Drop your thoughts below. Share a moment that made you stronger, even if it broke you first.